It isn't working. It's not working. It's not sufficient. Okay? It may work in your community. You may be achieving that happens for yours. It is not happening in our communities. So let me move on to another bill. And this one I'll tell you why. And this is my personal experience that just happened this week. This week. Bill 5437. Alvin Penn profiling bill. I was always for this years ago because I'd been profiled years ago coming home from church with my two boys in the back seat of my car. But just this very week, after leaving here late at night, and because, you don't think we need to support that bill and gather that data, and that's a bill that just basically says, hey, listen, because you got a form already you're supposed to fill out, but you're going to give somebody an electronic form, something that they even have, that says, hey, listen, I stopped you, even if you didn't get arrested, even if you didn't get a citation, here's something, so we have real evidence that data was tracked. Well, just this very week, after leaving a late night meeting here, as I get off the highway, I'm driving down the street, and I've got my Bluetooth, I got a regular phone, and I'm talking to someone on the phone, and I'm looking, it's my regular direction I go, the light is clearly green, I take a left-hand turn, and after I take the turn, I get stopped. Whoa, what's going on? In fact, I was so afraid I'm going to stop in the middle of the street and hear them, move over. I pull over. And I'll tell you what, ever since Eric Garner and a whole lot of things as a black man, it's not a good feeling when you get pulled over. Regardless of the fact you're a state representative, the first thing I did is I turned my dome light on. I want to make certain the officer can see me. My hands are on the wheel. I want to make sure he doesn't know there's anything crazy going to happen. And he pulls up to the car and says, officer, what's wrong? License and ID and registration, please. Officer, what's wrong? ID and registration, please. No response. I'm trying to find out, is there probable cause? What happened? All right. He turns, he walks back to his car, and not in a tone that's making me feel good. I'm saying, what is the reason this guy has just stopped me? Obviously, he runs my thing, and I knew the moment he ran it, as he's going to find out that, yeah, he is a state representative. He's pretty well known. All right. And exactly what I expected to happen, he comes back to the car, and he says, officer, what's wrong? Well, you went through the light back there, and I didn't go through the light there. I'm not going to argue with him. What am I going to do? I'm not going to argue with him. His next thing is, I'm really out here trying to find drunk drivers. I hadn't done anything to act like I'm driving drunk. Of course, I was in an area of town that isn't my area of town. All right. He says, you know what? Be careful driving tonight. Take care of yourself. Hands me my stuff and good night. Guess what? I was glad to get out and get away from there. Was there any ever record of that ever done? I don't know. But it sure would have been doggone valuable to have had him have to electronically record that and give me a receipt so we could have known. So that guess what? Now I'm going to my police chief or someone and say, here's what happened. This is the officer. This is what happened. Still going to be his word against mine in terms of, whether I went through the red light or not. But the fact that I'm asking very simple questions. Why didn't he tell me in the very beginning? Why? He stopped me. Why didn't he? Rather than wait until he could run some ID and maybe find out, does this guy have warrants? He's an African-American male. That's the kind of things that go through my mind. A lot of what you've heard today and everything else is perception. And there are bills that we're trying to put in here to make certain that, quite frankly, it actually protects the perception that people in our community have of police officers. It's not to make the job harder. The perceptions we have are real because of the way that we are treated is real. We are treated differently. And I'm a gentleman. I had a suit and tie. I'm sure he couldn't see that until he stopped me, but could clearly understand me that I was African American. So that's why this is necessary. Now, with that story I just told you, isn't that worth having that person? Because you already got to do the form. Isn't it worth having that to keep you safe and be able to say, listen, we recorded that stop. Whether you got a ticket or not, there's something there. There's real evidence because, you know what? I don't think he recorded anything. I am going to find out whether it did happen. Whether there was something recorded for that stop, I don't think so, though. Because that gentleman knows he had no good reason to stop me. As a grown man, to me, have to go through the humiliation that I went through was unnecessary. And that's what we're trying to stop. When the good officers that are working so hard have to deal with the stigma that's created by those that don't. Because they treat us as less than human, less than equal. It's wrong. And we're trying to create laws here to change that. That actually honors the officers that are doing the right things. I would ask that you help support us to getting this done. Racial profiling is alive and well in America, the state of Connecticut. Respond if you will.
I appreciate your comments, and I think we all certainly agree that law enforcement needs to have the trust of the community in order to get the cooperation of the community. I think my initial statement where Connecticut's police chiefs and Connecticut's police officers fully support the tenets of the Alvin Penn Act as they currently exist. Our opposition in this looks at the practical aspect of it. The equipment in the vehicles, the equipment that has to be maintained year after year. If that equipment doesn't work, can that officer in that vehicle no longer make traffic stops because they're not able to spit out the forms that are supposed to be taken out? We waited 6 weeks for these traffic stop notices recently because they couldn't keep up with how quick they had to be printed. They were just put on my desk 2 days ago. We waited 6 weeks. We had no slips that we could give out. So we were in violation of the law because we made all the traffic stops. We didn't have the pieces of paper that were supposed to be given out. So we worry about the printer in the car, some of the technological things. I'm not saying this isn't something that can't be worked on. We can find a way to support it going on into the future to make sure every municipality has the funds to be able to put these in every single vehicle. But we do support the tenets of the Alvin Penn Act. We are in compliance. We are collecting the data. We're anxious to see what the data reveals on April 2nd when the traffic stop report and the analysis is released so that we can use that information as tools to measure what exactly our officers are doing and try to come up with a standard of how traffic stops should be completed and who is being stopped.
Representative Morris, I can't understand what you experienced, but I encourage you to pursue that. That officer that may have stopped you just because of your race, he's wrong to have done that. I encourage you to bring that to the attention of the law enforcement authority in your community. Unfortunately, I don't know everyone's community here, so I can't say where that is. But I would go to that chief and ask him. You give him the date, you give him the time, he'll be able to tell you who the officer is. We have electronic devices now that kind of tell us where officers are in a general area. We assign patrol areas. If you give us an electronic tool to do that, an officer a bad apple, could just as easily not record it electronically as he could on a piece of paper. So all we're saying here is that the electronic format may be the wrong way. But holding officers accountable, we encourage you to do that. We encourage you to check with your chief and to pursue that and to see if that officer documented that stop. It will come down to your word against his, but you are passionate enough and believable enough to at least get that on record. And if more people put that on record, then that officer will have repetitive complaints. There'll be some legitimacy, not just to your one complaint, but maybe to several. So I encourage you to pursue that.
When it becomes the practice that everyone, regardless of your race, regardless of your community, gets that receipt, everyone will expect it. Similar to the other piece you've got that hasn't happened, everyone would expect it. See, the difference is I was one of the co-sponsors of the bill, so I know that I was supposed to get something and I got nothing. So I knew he had broken the law. All right? But the issue is, once you have the practice, you'll have that data. And I think, quite frankly, that alone will stop those who are bad actors from...
Thank you. When I was listening to you earlier, you talked about going through the process as it might exist where people live in their local municipality, be it going to the police, going to the chief, going to the elected officials. We happen to be elected officials by those people. And in some places, going through the various processes that exist have not worked for people. And so when that happens, sometimes you get to this building. Now, a couple of you sitting there I've had interaction with. And I had that interaction when we were doing the update to the Alvin Penn racial profiling bill, which I'm told, before we make the changes, you're supporting the way that it works now. That wasn't the case when we were doing the Alvin Penn racial profiling update. That's not the case when we're doing body cameras. That's not the case when we're doing recording of police. That wasn't the case when we were talking about recording of custodial interrogations. There's a trend here. It's not that you come here saying, we don't support it as it's currently constructed and we're willing to do some work on it. We come with opposition. And after your question, you say, well, maybe we can work together. The way you come to this building adds to that perception that we've been talking about. You don't come to this building saying, we're concerned about protecting the people of the state as well. And so we recognize this doesn't work for us as it's currently constructed, but we're going to work on it. You come to this building saying, no, that is a problem. And I would hope in the future, because I'm sure in the future we're going to have something else. I would hope in the future that when you come here and you have a problem with something that you suggest to us might actually, after being questioned, might actually be something that we could do something with, that you come with some ideas, because that's the reason for you testifying, not just to offer opposition.